Hello and welcome to the 2021 Pinkbike Awards. In this video, we'll be discussing our nominations as well as handing out the awards for the Value Product of the Year, the Suspension Product of the Year,
Product of the Year, which will be a big one, and an exciting category, Innovation of the Year. But first, we're going to start with Value Product of the Year, and our first nominee is...
Well, our first nomination is the brand new ROCKSHOX Domain fork. Now this fork, which retails for $550, as Mike Kasma put it, is free from many of the traits that would make you think it is a budget fork, which sounds pretty good for value.
Our next nominee, it's RIMPACT's Pro Tire Insert. In our group test earlier this year, we found that the RIMPACT insert worked amazingly well. And not only is it lighter than some of the others, it also costs less. And that's a combo it's hard to beat.
The next nomination is the DELIUM tire range. Now these things are far cheaper and, as an upcoming review will tell you, perform admirably. It's not about whether they're better than your Maxxis or Schwalbe, because they're actually trying to replicate that performance. But what they are trying to do is offer that performance for a lot less money, and that's something they do.
And on to our last nominee, Henry. Well, it's anything that you can get your hands on. If the current times have taught us anything, it's that you don't need the latest, newest bike and gear to enjoy riding. And that's especially true when you can't find any of that stuff to begin with. So there you go.
And the winner of the 2021 Value Product of the Year from Pinkbike, to be presented with a real trophy at some point, is the DELIUM tire range. These tires have really impressed us and, like we said, come far cheaper than many of its competitors.
What is that?
It's some kind of rabbit house.
I've never seen a rabbit living in a house like that.
That rabbit compared to the size of that turret, that is a massive rabbit.
That's like a 12-foot tall rabbit.
That's probably the biggest rabbit I've ever seen.
Now the next award that we're going to hand out, Henry, is for Suspension Product of the Year. And I definitely should point out that we are not taking affordability into account whatsoever, Henry. This is just about standout performance. And we have 4 nominees.
Now, part of performance is ease of setup. So there are some things here which definitely come into their own because they're just so easy to get along with. And what's the first nomination?
First up is Fox's brand new 34 Grip 2 fork. Now this thing offers an incredible amount of performance in a package that's reasonably light and comes with a damper and air spring that blew us away.
Our next nomination is the MANITOU DORADO fork. Now this fork offers performance that is just as startling as its upside down appearance and definitely has some hardcore fans out there.
Right. Cane Creek's KITSUMA rear shock is up next. Now Cane Creek is offering the same twin tube damping technology they've been known for all along, but now you don't need any tools to adjust it. Thank baby Jesus. Now you just turn the dials.
Now, speaking of tool-free adjustment, how could we ignore ROCKSHOX's new flight attendant system? This system adjusts your compression damping on the fly to give you damping that should always be perfect for the task at hand.
And the winner for Suspension Product of the Year and our beautiful thrift store trophy is Fox's new 34 Grip 2 fork. Henry, why are we giving this trophy to Fox?
The 34 is such a good fork because it actually manages to incorporate many of the traits of some longer travel enduro fork in a lighter weight package, and actually was something of a salvation for some bikes with less travel on our recent Downcountry field test, and it really opened up just what they could get done.
Right, trail bikes have never been so good, and the 34 is part of that.
Absolutely.
Now this year has not been the most interesting as far as components go, and I think that's reflected in our nominees, to be honest with you. But regardless, our first one, Specialized 2FO Roost flat pedal shoe. They offer the same amount of grip as shoes from 510 and other companies, but at a much lower price. Hard to beat.
Similarly, SRAM's new HS2 rotors have only made a small incremental change, one could argue, by going to a 2mm width. However, they do increase the power of your pre-existing SRAM brakes without needing any major components overhaul, save for the rotor themselves. And that cross-compatibility is largely one of the reasons why it's nominated.
Our next nominee is DT Swiss for their EX 1700 wheels. Henry, we had these wheels on a whole bunch of bikes at field test, and they just kept on trucking. You're gonna find the 350 hubs in the middle and their EX 511 rims on the outside. They just work, and that's why they're nominated, Henry.
Absolutely. Now the last nomination is the Aircraft 2 from 100%. Now this full face helmet might look quite similar to the Trajector, the Enduro helmet in the brand's lineup. However, it is their new downhill helmet and is certified as such. The reason why it's nominated is because it is just so ventilated, and that really comes into its own on hot summer days in the bike park.
Right, it's time to talk about the winner for Product of the Year, who gets this excellent Fox trophy. Henry?
The winner of this year's Product of the Year is the DT Swiss wheels, because they are so reliable, and that's exactly what you want. You can fit them and forget them, and that is truly a very useful product indeed.
Next up, it's time to talk Innovation of the Year, Henry. Now, these products have to make a difference on the trail, and we have 5 nominees. Our first one being?
The first nomination is the SUPRE drivetrain. Now, this drivetrain is very different to anything that's out there at the moment, and that's because it manages to combine the traits of our standard external gears as well as those of a gearbox system. It's certainly very interesting, and it's certainly very innovative.
The idea there, Henry, is to improve reliability, and a whole lot of people were fans of that First Look article. Now, we all know that electronic suspension is nothing new, but ROCKSHOX's flight attendant looks at it from a whole different angle, and they're our next nominee. The idea here is to use their wireless suspension to improve a bike's pedaling performance while still allowing it to work extremely well on the descents. And I've ridden this stuff, and I'm pretty impressed.
Our next nomination is another suspension product, the Carbonair. Now this, it gets pretty complicated, but it's basically there to let your air suspension feel more like a coil. And actually, counterintuitively, it expands the volume of the air chamber by fitting these tokens inside. So for the full details on that one, you'll be sure to check out the article on the Pinkbike homepage.
Our next nominee, it's Digit for their DATUM trail bike. Now this thing has a hidden shock, and that isn't something that's new. We've seen it before. But Digit's production bike, well, they say that they've saved almost a pound of weight compared to something that uses more pivots, and the frame is stiffer.
Now, the next nomination might get a few groans from viewers at home, but that's not to say it isn't innovative. And that is e-bikes where you can spec the size of battery for your riding. Now, large capacity e-bikes are nothing new. However, being able to choose the capacity for your trails is, and that sounds pretty good to us.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, now that we're done with the nominees, Henry is going to tell us who wins this very Christmassy trophy of sorts.
The winner of the 2021 Innovation of the Year is the SUPRE drivetrain from Lao Bikes. That's because it is a wholesale departure from what we think a drivetrain should look like, and also satisfies most of the criteria for the gearbox crowd who are fed up with their derailleurs hanging out the back of their bikes. Now, your real trophies are in the post, but sadly they didn't turn up in time for this video, and so we had to make do, which I think we did a good job.
It's very Christmassy.
It is very Christmassy. Now, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to get in the comments to let you know what awards you think your favorite product should have won. Something
tells me they're not the ones that we have in this video.
Well, unless they want to go buy some porcelain dolls themselves, there's simply nothing they can do. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you next time.